On today's episode, I give you 2 of the best defensive midfielders with the box-to-box playstyle that you can buy if you're on a budget. Stay tuned. Hey guys, so we've talked about box-to-box players in our previous videos, and as you know, just in quick summary, a box-to-box player is a player that's going to play all the way from a defensive midfielder and make runs up through into attacking midfield and potentially into the box. Their job primarily is going to be to support defense, help them out a little, try and protect your back line from midfielders or attacking midfielders bursting through and track their runs, and then support the attack by running into advanced areas on the offense. So I found 2 guys I think are really good. Their play styles are slightly different in the way that they apply their skills, so they're not exact matches, and I'll explain that as I go through. But the first guy I found is a guy named Willian Ario, and he's been part of previous analysis that I've done. After taking a look at all of the players I had available for this, I felt like he was really strong in this defensive midfield position with that box-to-box play style. He's 77 overall, he's Brazilian, he's 28 years old, he can play center midfield and defensive midfield, and potentially you can train him to be a center back. He's got no inspire skills and he's right-footed. As we take a look at his abilities, 66 offensive awareness. This is where the play style is a little different from the other player I'm going to cover. I felt like he was a little more defensive. He's got 75 ball control, so he can handle the ball decently. 77 low pass, 77 lofted pass. I feel like this is pretty solid. It means that he can be very involved in link-up play and also take the ball from deep and put in some long balls if you're playing a counter-attack. He's got 75 heading, and I think this is actually really important because he's also got 76 jumping, and those two paired together make him pretty dangerous in the air. He's also got 81 physical contact, which is really good, again, for challenging in the air, and then also for holding up the ball or any physical altercations, trying to wrestle the ball off an offensive player. He's got 73 bounce, which isn't terrible. It means he won't get pushed off the ball super easy, and he's got 84 stamina, which is going to be key for a box-to-box player, as they're going to run all over the field and try and get involved in every attack and every defense. As we move on to the remaining abilities, we see he's got 76 defensive awareness, 78 ball winning, and 75 aggression. Pretty good stats from a defensive perspective. He, for me, is the defensive choice out of the 2 players. If you want a box-to-box player that's a little more defensive, and that's your style, you're looking for somebody who's really gonna protect your back line more, I think this is your guy. He's got a weak foot of 2 and conditioning of 6, which is really solid. It means that for the most part, you're gonna get him above his current skill level. So he's gonna have those green arrows or upwards arrows. And then his injury resistance is 2, which means he'll be available for most games and rarely be injured. He's 181 centimeters, which is probably average height, but remember he's got that jumping ability and heading ability, which still make him pretty dangerous in the air, so he is an aerial threat. His body type is also a little slim. He's a little on the lighter side for his height, and that means that he's going to feel faster than his stats reflect, and he has 72 speed and 74 acceleration, so just keep that in mind. So not super fast, but he's going to feel like he's probably around 78, 80 speed and acceleration. As we take a look at the skills, he's got marking, which is really solid. It allows him to track a player very closely and shadow them. He's got interceptions, which is going to be huge playing at the defensive midfield position, which means he's going to cut a lot of balls off. And because he's got good jumping, it means that he can get in the air to cut those balls off. That plays a large part also in the next skill, which is acrobatic clear. So having acrobatic clear is going to allow him to get to balls he wouldn't usually be able to get to, do sliding tackles, do crazy kicks, and then get to headers he shouldn't get to. So this is all really important from a skill perspective. He's also got captaincy, which is going to reduce the fatigue of the rest of the team when he plays. And then he's got fighting spirit, which is going to have an individual effect on him that is going to reduce the effects of fatigue. So that double whammy is actually really important. I'm going to do another video on that, by the way, guys. It should be coming out in the next couple weeks around stamina and how captaincy and fighting spirit multiply when you use them together. But this is really good. This is a really good set of skills for a defensive player, and it makes him really dangerous on the defensive side of the ball and really helps to protect your defense. As we move to team role, he's got leader level 2, which is actually pretty solid. It's going to give some benefits to your team. And then if you look at his development sheet, he's 77 currently. You're going to get that probably for another 2 years, and then you're going to see a dip. So maybe this is a player you loan, maybe it's a player you sign for a year or 2 to help you get into a higher division, or just someone that can come in and do some work for you before you bring in a superstar. are. So just keep that in mind. Now, as you see some of the gameplay, what you're going to see a lot of is what I was talking about, him doing work on the defensive side of the ball. But what I've tried to show you as well is that he's got that athleticism that allows him to burst through, and he feels faster in game than his stats suggest. This also makes him really dangerous when someone's running at him or when he's picking up a through ball, and you'll see a lot of examples of him picking up through balls, taking them 10-20 yards and then dishing it off. The other thing is you'll see good examples of him holding up the ball, making slight turns, and then passing into dangerous situations. And that's really important for this guy. He's not going to be technically sound. He's a very simple, straightforward type of player. Strong, decent passing, and you're going to try and use him as much as you can on the defense. But that speed and that body length mixed in with his skills, acrobatic, clear, etc., really allow him to get to balls he shouldn't get to and make really strong challenges against people that are trying to come into your area of the field. So simple, straightforward. If you want a defensive guy, this is probably the guy out of the two players you're going to want to go with. And that brings us to our next player, who's a guy by the name of Thorsby, and he is from Norway, 24 years old, no inspire skills, can play attacking midfielder, central midfielder, and I've played him in defensive midfield here, but it's showing green, so this is something that you need to keep him in this position until it turns that teal color. But honestly, I tested a lot of defensive midfielders here, and even though he's not 100% at the position, he's one of the best you're going to find at these lower price levels. He's right-footed, and he can also be trained to play right back or left wing forward. As we move on to his abilities, we see he's a little more offensive. So spoiler alert, if you want a more offensive player, this is the guy that you're going to pick out of the two. He's got 72 offensive awareness. I know it's not crazy high, but it does actually make a difference in game. He felt much more offensive. He's got 75 ball control, 70 dribbling, 74 tight possession, and all of these are going to come into play because he's going to push forward more than the other players that I tested. He's also got 77 low pass, but he's only got 67 lofted pass. So you're going to want to keep the ball on the ground. You're going to want to do ground through balls, ground passes, but we'll talk about that in a little bit here. He's got 70 finishing. He can actually bang them, and that's going to be due to his 78 kicking power. So you can actually shoot from distance with him. You're not going to score a ton of goals, but you might score a couple. He's also got 81 heading, which means that he's going to be pretty dangerous in the air. Mix that with his 80 jump and 83 physical contact, and you've got yourself a beefy kind of guy. He feels really stocky, really muscular, and really sure on the ball. He's not super fast. He's got 75 speed, 71 acceleration, so he's not a speedster, but he is going to be a guy that can dictate the pace of the midfield and can stop players coming into your half, take the ball off them, and then initiate plays and potentially runs forward as well if you're looking for that type of defensive midfielder. He's also got 83 stamina, which means that he's going to be able to last all game, and with him, because he's not a super fast player, you're not going to be burning through that stamina like crazy. As we go to defensive abilities, you can see here 68 defensive awareness, 75 ball winning, 83 aggression. So he's still strong enough and aggressive enough to win the ball, but he's not going to do a ton of defensive work like Ario. He's got a weak foot of 3, which means that when he does use his weak foot, he can actually be really effective. And he's got conditioning of 5, which is solid. It means that for the most part, you're going to get him at or above his skill level, and an injury resistance of 2, which means that for the most part, he's going to be healthy. Now, we talked about the aerial threat earlier. He's 189 centimeters. He's a big man. He can get up to those balls, but more importantly, he can use his body to just block off people. He can hold up the ball really well. And as you move forward, what you can actually do, and I'll show you some examples of this, is just use your body to slowly turn whoever's coming at you. And you can actually beat them and put some distance between them by just slowly turning them because they keep trying to body bump you to take the ball off you. He's decently heavy at 79 kgs, but he's not super heavy. So he doesn't feel fast in game, but he doesn't feel super slow. As we move to his skills, he's got interception, which is pretty good, allows him to get in front of passes that are coming in to your half the field. He's got acrobatic clear, which again, because of his height, makes him a monster when it comes to clearing the ball from corners or free kicks or things like that. So just think about that, like he's going to be a monster when it comes to anything in the air. And then he's got fighting spirit, which will reduce those effects of fatigue, so he'll be able to last all game. And remember, he had 83 stamina, so he'll be in a really good spot. You'll have him all game being able to play ball. As we go to team roll, there's nothing there, so we can move on. And then remember, he's only 24, so you are going to get some growth from this guy, and it looks like he'll probably end up over the next 3 years being at somewhere around 77, potentially 78. And this is without any boosts. So if you get some boosts through other team roles, you could get this guy up above 80 and potentially accelerate that that growth curve over the next 2 years. So just think about that. There's a lot of potential there. He's also not a pace player, so it means that he's probably going to get technically better. He might lose a little speed, but because of his height, you can still use him very effectively in midfield, and he can still do his job. Now, as we get into the gameplay, you'll see immediately what I was talking about him using his body. Very, very good at just using his big body to move into space, to block people off, to bump them, to turn them. And you'll see that, as I talked about before, I'm not doing a lot of lofted passes. You're seeing that, you know, for the most part, I'm keeping the ball on the ground. It's really important with him because he can't really do lofted passes at all. But you'll see people struggle. People really struggle to get the ball from him. He can kind of move around at will and hold on to the ball unless 2 or 3 guys pressure him. And then he can play off really nice balls and then continue to move up if you want him to. From the defensive side, you'll need to work on your positioning a little. So you'll need to kind of run into them, body bump them, block them off. But as long as you can position your body effectively, you can do a lot of really good work with this guy. And I thought his movement around the field was really good. He felt really good to use. He felt very secure and safe, whether it was defending or moving forward. And I think that's what's really interesting. Obviously, if you're playing a box-to-box player in defensive midfield, expect that they're going to run forward and leave that defensive midfield position unless you give them a specific tactic or instruction not to. So all in all, if you want someone more offensive, take Thorsby. If you want someone more defensive, take Ario. But these two guys are really, really solid at that box-to-box defensive midfield position. I think they can do really good work for you, and they're very affordable. You can get them for under that 5 mil price point, and you can loan them for under 2 mil. So just keep that in mind. All right, guys, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll be back soon with some more. Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, I'm new to YouTube, so if you like the content, please give me a like. If you like the topics, please subscribe, and always leave a comment if you can. Thanks, guys.